questions which are just touching it and the concept, the touching the concept, and then we can have some question and answers also. First, going into the quality by design. Quality by design basically means concurrent engineering or cross-functional teams are there for product development. Now, in an organization, there are various people who perform different roles. For example, the designer creates the product that meets the functional requirements. The manufacturing engineer produces the designed product efficiently by looking into the process requirements, which are drawn from the product requirements. Then there are sales people also who sell the product, who try to find out whether the product is better than the competitors or not. Then there are purchasers who purchase the parts that meet quality requirements. And then packaging and distribution team ensures that the product reaches the customer safely in good condition, without any damages. And all this cannot happen without an effective communication and team effort of all the functions of an organization. So the success of quality by design or concurrent engineering depends on the team effort and effective communication. And if that is not present, then that success will be difficult to achieve. And comparing one by one the sequential engineering and quality by design, the other type of engineering is sequential engineering, where one department or function plays its role, then passes the product to the next department, who performs the role according to their needs and requirements. Now here, as you can see, that in the sequential engineering, two stages of designing are there. However, in quality by design, only a single stage design is there. Here, in quality by design, all the stakeholders, the engineering, manufacturing, the suppliers, purchasers, as well as other stakeholders come together to define the product, what are the requirements with respect to the product. And after that, the designing process is consists of designing it for manufacturability, testability, marketability, assembly, disassembly, quality, reliability. And if we talk about sustainable design, so recycling also comes into picture nowadays. Recycling, as well as green engineering, or we talk about cradle to cradle designing, where when the parts are drawn from the natural environment, then after that the entire product life cycle happens, and then the part again goes back to the sources in different forms. So the designing is during the entire life cycle with respect to, and also designed with respect to the recycling aspect as well as the green engineering. So all the complete designing is done by the cross functional team at one go. Whereas in case of sequential engineering, the designing is in two stages. First, it is done for performance, cost, marketability, and aesthetics. And then there is manufacturability. It is designed for manufacturability, testability, quality, reliability, etc. So after that, the process is similar. Design is verified, then prototype is developed, tested, it is tested, and then manufactured. And if we have a hypothetical product development timeline, so here you can see that quality by design saves time. And because it does not devote any time in redesigning, re-verification, and re-prototype at one go, because all the stakeholders are involved in designing, so they actually ensure that their requirement is fulfilled. So a complete mix of all the requirement fulfillment, all the requirements are fulfilled with during quality by design, because cross functional teams are there and it saves time. So and the communication models are also different in the sequential engineering as well as in quality by design. In sequential engineering, the production engineering and business team, the purchasing team, finance team, or the purchasing quality, all these do not have interaction within themselves. But in case of quality by design, because it is a team effort, everyone interacts with each other as well as with the organization management. So communication is very important, and everyone knows what kind of requirements the other department is having, and they also show concern towards the requirements of other departments. But in case of sequential engineering, one person is more or less focused on his or her own work, and they are not that much involved in the work of the other departments. Now, if we talk about the tools used in quality by design, these are the various tools, and we are already aware of most of the tools like total quality management philosophies. There were lectures also conducted by the ISQ on same in their computer networks, local area network, and the global information networks for passing of information from one place to other place. Then ISO 9001 9000 series, then 14,000 series of environmental management standards, then total productive maintenance. And there are various types of maintenance like preventive maintenance, which is a time-based maintenance. Then reliability centered maintenance is also a modern concept where reliability of each and every part is considered and given importance. And one of these is quality function deployment. And it is going into the definitions of quality function deployment. Quality function deployment is a technique of optimization where product is developed or services are developed on the basis of customer needs. It can be also called as a blueprint for quality by design. And where quality by design aims at continuous improvement, controlling variability, and understanding what is variability with respect to the product. And it is basically a tool for planning to meet and exceed customer expectations. It is also called as a disciplined approach to product engineering, to product design, engineering, manufacturing. And the product is evaluated completely for all during all stages in a disciplined way in during quality function deployment. And there are various names also given to quality function deployment as well as quality by design. Quality by design can also be called as concurrent engineering, simultaneous engineering, or parallel engineering. And quality function deployment basically means functional analysis system techniques and structured product process analysis or system engineering. So these are various names given. And if we talk about the history of QFD, Dr. Mizuno, who was a professor at Tokyo Institute of Technology, actually initiated QFD, and it originated in 1972 at Mitsubishi's Kobe shipyard site in Japan, and it is used since 1977. And quality also improved hugely after the implementation of QFD. And one example was that Toyota actually used it in a new van and the startup cost considerably reduced in 1979 to 20% from 1977 cost. Then in 1982, it further reduced to 38% and then 61% in 1984. So these results show that there is a startup cost reduction, because during the development phase, only a large number of factors are considered, and it is ensured that the product is designed perfectly meeting the customer expectations or requirements. And the time also reduced from January 1977 to January 84, from 100% to 33%. The development time also reduced. So these are the two benefits. Also, we will discuss the benefits in detail in the end. And progress of QFD in USA, if we talk about, Cadillac was the first car. Cadillac was the first car which was designed with QFD in 1992. And it was developed and publicized by American Supplier Institute, which was a non-profit institute, and by Goal and QPC, which were the consulting firms in Massachusetts. And this is the car which was developed in USA using QFD. And the successful implementers of QFD, it is has wide applications. It actually helped the electronics sector, appliances sector, clothing and construction equipment sectors have already applied it, and they have got very good results out of it. And if we talk about the organizations, Procter and Gamble, Ford, IBM, AT&T, GM, Mazda, Xerox, Motorola, Kodak, and HP all have actually implemented it and have gained the benefits and derived the benefits from it. And now coming to basic QFD, what is QFD? QFD ensures that customer needs are translated into the design of the product as well as the design of the process. Means product requirements are also laid down from the customer requirements, and the process requirements are also laid down after deriving the product requirements. So process is also made in alignment with the product, and the product is aligned to the customer requirements. And all operations here are driven by the customer needs. So customer is the most important player in case of quality function deployment. The operations are not driven by top management and neither by design engineer's opinion. The most important opinion is that of the customer, and it is a team management approach or team-based approach. So teamwork also plays a very important role in quality function deployment. Now, identifying the customer requirements, the marketing team actually identifies the customer needs and expectations. Then the managers derive the product and service specifications. Then manufacturing and service delivery process specifications are derived from what manager has derived, and then the final product or service is delivered. So it is finding out the customer requirements, what the customer needs and meets, what the customer needs and what are his or her expectations. And if the product and service is approved according to the customer requirements, then the product can be manufactured. Else redesigning will be done, or there will be some improvements done in order to achieve the customer expectations. So these are the basic steps of quality function deployment. First is finding out what the customer wants, and it is also called the voice of the customer. Customer voice is the most important and the driving force here. Then the company finds out derives his or her voice based on the voice of the customer. The technical requirements are laid down. Then the interrelationships between the customer requirements and technical requirements are found out based on experience of the customer or expert experiences. Also based on the data available, the correlations can be done, and to find out whether there is a strong relationship between the laid down customer requirements or technical requirements. Then fourth is the relationship between the technical requirements on the roof. The structure actually looks like a house of the quality, and the roof basically represents the relationship between various technical requirements. And then the points 5 and 6 actually are given differently in different books, and some books only emphasize on the competitor analysis to find out whether competitor is doing better with respect to any customer requirement or not. And some books emphasize both on competitive assessment as well as technical assessment, which technical requirement is fulfilled in the product of the competitor in a better manner. And then to find out what are the prioritized customer requirements with respect to the marketability and selling perspective, like which point, for example, in case of a cycle, or maybe in case of a college, if we talk about, the college might have an upper hand if they have better placements. So that will be the selling point for the respective college or institution. And if we talk about the COVID-19 medicine or vaccine which will be prepared, so vaccine basically is a preventive measure. So but if any vaccine is prepared which also cures the disease, if after it has happened to any person, it performs the role of prevention as well as cure, then that will be an added advantage, and that can be a selling point also. So similarly, prioritize technical descriptors also define what are the technical requirements, because in technical requirements, all the manufacturing processes, the resources play an important role, and the ease of achievement of the technical requirement, the economics of the requirement, the how much costly the process is during manufacturing, that is also considered. So prioritized technical descriptors are also listed in some of the books, and majorly 5 important steps are there: finding the customer requirements, then the technical requirements, then defining the interrelationship between customer and technical requirements, then relationship between technical requirements themselves, whether all requirements are supporting each other or not, or there are some contradictory requirements are there, then trade-offs can be obtained. The better mix of technical requirements will be selected in case of contradiction between technical requirements, and competitor analysis, which is the 5th step, so which is done in all the QFDs. And some organizations go beyond that to define prioritized customer requirements and prioritize technical descriptors also. So here I have taken one example, and there is a cycle manufacturing firm which is actually producing cycles which are actually run on road only. And but the new product requirement is that they have to design a handlebar stem for a mountain bike. Now, with these are the various parts of the cycle, and which can be different for different products. So we do not need to go into detail of all these. However, the requirements of these parts, like the joints of the rods which are used here, the material plays an important role, and the moving parts also play an important role. Now, some part of it actually act as a structure only because it is not having any mechanisms. There is a difference between structures and machines. Structures are static parts like in the building, we have a structure of reinforced concrete and the various building materials which are used. The building is not at all a moving entity, so that is called a structure, and the mechanism is having those parts which are having relative motion with respect to each other. And so it consists of all these. The role of the static parts is to provide the strength and to not to dismantle or to not to break while the cycle is running, or while it is actually having the load, or while it is sustaining the load of the person, weight of the person who is actually driving the cycle. And the moving parts is that role of moving parts is that they should provide a smooth movement, as well as they should absorb shocks also. Shock absorption devices can also be implemented, which actually ensure that if the terrain is not flat or the road is not good, then the cycle can adjust automatically into that. And for that, wheels play a very important role. And in case of mountain bikes, if we talk about the difference between the normal wheels and the mountain wheels, is that the mountain wheels are having a lug pattern as shown in the diagram here, and the rib pattern is for the basic road bikes. A road bike uses narrower tires without lugs, and mountain bike wheels come with 26 to 29-inch options, and also always feature tires with raised lugs. So this is the basic difference between road bikes as well as mountain bikes. However, here we have to design the handlebar stem only, and not the entire product. So moving further towards the first step, listing the customer requirements. Now here the primary requirements are that the performance and the aesthetics play a very important role with respect to handlebar stem, and the aesthetics, the looks. So deriving the secondary requirements from the primary requirements are reasonable cost, the aerodynamic look of the handlebar stem. It should have a nice finish. It should be corrosion resistant, and performance wise, it should have lightweight. It should have strength also, and durability also. And in some cases, tertiary requirements can also be listed further. Primary requirements are not actionable by the engineering staff, so secondary requirements are listed in order to have more clarity. And why moving further, based on these primary requirements, the selection of material and the manufacturing process will be done. And why selection of material and manufacturing process is important is because if we select a poor material or process, then the component or product can stop functioning, then, or it may perform below the level of performance it is supposed to give. Component or product does not function properly or perform within required specification limits. For example, in cars, if the specified mileage is 10 to 15 kilometers per hour per liter, and it gives a lesser mileage, then that is a reduced performance as compared to what is promised with the customer. Also, component or product becomes unreliable or unsafe. That is, it does not serve the intended function for which it is manufactured, for which it is produced, or unsafe for further use. For example, a crack in a shaft, a poor connection in a printed circuit board, or delamination of a reinforced plastic component. Then reasons for product component failure are, one of the reasons is improper selection of material. So that is why it is very important. Then design deficiencies can also be there. Material defects can also be there. Manufacturing induced defects can also be there. Improper component assembly, improper product use can be there. Improper selection of manufacturing process, and improper control of process variables. So all these, like selection of material and manufacturing process, play an important role. Then material defects, design deficiencies, and also improper control of process variables actually result in component and product failure. So that is why these are very important. So moving further, what is design? If we talk about design, is not only for manufacturing or for assembly, but it is also for disassembly. It is also for servicing. It is also for recycling. Design for environment or green design is also a very important concept, which which is aligned with sustainable development goals of the United Nations. And the approaches are sustainable manufacturing, that is using something, ensuring that it is not deteriorated, using the environment or the natural resources, but ensuring that it is also available for future generations without any compromise for them. And product life cycle, it is designed for the entire product life cycle, initiation, then it moves to the peak, where it gives the highest performance. And then the product life cycle management includes all the strategies of product life cycle. Then cradle to cradle philosophy that we have already discussed earlier. So listing the technical descriptors, coming to the second step. Here, the material selection, they have actually selected steel, aluminum, or titanium are the options which they have actually considered. And manufacturing processes here, if we talk about the forming or shaping processes, the die casting, sand casting, and forging are basically for shaping, as well as the powder metallurgy. But different kinds of materials are die casted, and different materials are sand casted, forged, or powder metallurgy is used for different materials. And welding is a joining process, and there are various kinds of welding like TIG welding, tungsten inert gas welding, and metal inert gas welding. So there are large number of processes which can be further taken in the next stages, next QFDs, or because one product does not have only one QFD. It can have many number of QFDs stage wise. So this is the first stage QFD, but further we can move into other factors which actually affect this die casting, sand casting, forging, or welding, which are the various types of weldings in the next stage QFDs. And here you can see the various symbols. The basically this filled circle which is given, it is showing +9 value here. Then the medium circle which is showing +3 value here, and the weak signal which is shown by a triangle. So these are basically denoting the relationships between the customer requirements and the technical descriptors. For example, reasonable cost and steel, this has a strong relationship with each other. Similarly, reasonable cost and aluminum is also having a strong relationship, but reasonable cost and titanium are having a weak relationship. So we will come again to this, the defining various relationships. First, we will discuss the selection of materials and the manufacturing processes, how it is done. So if we try to find out what are the various aspects in selecting a material, it is the properties of the materials, the economic aspects, the service life, the recycling strategies, and the appearance. Now, appearance is the appeal to customer. It should be, the color should be good, the feel should be good, the texture should be good. It should not hurt, the handlebar stem should not hurt the customer while he or she is holding it. Then recycling of materials also plays an important role. Uh, Disposal of toxic waste, how it will be done. Use of biodegradable materials should be ensured. Then if we talk about economic aspects, cost and availability are the most important aspects in that, which depend on the manufacturing method, the expensive labor, whether it is available for producing the products, machinery, how costly it is, and reliability of supply and demand of labor, as well as other factors of production, land, labor cost, everything comes into picture in that. Then availability of material also plays an important role. And if we talk about properties of material, now mechanical, physical, chemical, and manufacturing properties all should be considered while selecting the material. And for designing the product during the life cycle, the time and service dependent phenomena like wear of parts, fatigue on repetitive loading, at what point it fails, or creep, first permanent deformation in the product, then dimensional stability of the product, the degrees of freedom which are actually restricted, like if two rods are joined with one rod in between, then the degrees of freedom of motion, the 6 degrees of freedom of clockwise and anti-clockwise motion in X, Y, and Z direction are restricted for that particular rod, which is actually joined in between two, which is forming an I section, or which is forming an I shape, where two rods are actually supporting one rod in between. So the degrees of freedom also play an important role, and dimensional stability is a part of it. And then friction, whether the parts are actually working well in the friction, which is, for example, in tires, friction is a very important factor while designing the tire. The wear of the tire, the corrosion on reacting with the various chemicals, or on reacting with the environment, being in the environment, whether it is getting corroded or not. So all these play a very important role in selecting the material. And sequence wise, mechanical properties should be considered first, then physical properties, then chemical properties, and fourth is the manufacturing properties. Mechanical properties consist of strength, the resistance to deformation, then toughness is resistance to failure, ductility is the ability to be drawn into wires, then hardness is when one material is getting scratched with the other material. How hard is it? If a hard material is there, then on being rubbed, it does not, with a material of lesser hardness, it will never show any scratch. Then elasticity, then fatigue and creep. Fatigue is failure at a lower force when it is subjected to repetitive loadings, and creep is the first permanent small deformation which happens in a material. And high strength to weight and stiffness to weight ratio of materials is also important. Strength and stiffness is the resistance to deformation which the material shows, particularly for aerospace and automotive appliances, example aluminum, titanium, reinforced plastics. Then properties should be appropriate to the conditions under which product is expected to function. So it is also important to find out what are the conditions under which the product will function. For example, in Antarctica, where ice is there, the temperature will be very low. So material will be selected based on that only. But for any vehicle which has to service in India or in any other part or Asian continent, then the functioning conditions will be different. Similarly, physical properties, density, whether material is dense or not, specific heat of material, and thermal expansion, how much it is getting expanded, what is the conductivity of the material, the melting point, at what temperature it melts. Then electrical and magnetic properties also play an important role. Then chemical properties, oxidation, corrosion, general degradation of properties, toxicity, flammability of material. And in case of some airlines, earlier it was shown that when the airline actually crashed, airplane actually crashed, many deaths were caused because of toxic fumes from burning non-metallic materials in the aircraft cabin. So it was important to ensure that in future airlines, such materials are not used, which on burning, in case of burning, are actually causing toxic fumes or releasing toxic fumes. Then fourth is the manufacturing properties, whether materials can be cast, formed, welded, machined, or heat treated to improve the properties. Then methods used to process materials to the desired shapes can affect the product's final properties, which was also told by earlier faculties who have taken lectures on metallurgy and relevant aspects. Service life and cost also plays an important role in case of selection of materials. So the most important point here is that the sequence of properties selected should be mechanical, then physical, then chemical, and then manufacturing properties. So I hope up till now there is no problem in understanding. Hello? Hello?
Anyone has any questions?
Okay, so far. Going good, no problem.
Actually, sir, we are not able to see the participants. Sometimes we feel whether they are able to hear or not. So in between, it is necessary to ask.
Yes.
Yeah. So moving further, like one example, I have taken some mechanical and chemical properties, mechanical property and some physical properties also. Now, first we have to consider mechanical properties. Now here, modulus of elasticity, that is Young's modulus, play an important role. Yield point, which is denoted by Y. Modulus of elasticity is denoted by E, and UTS is ultimate tensile strength, or the strength at which the material breaks. So the tensile strength here, the minimum and the maximum are shown for aluminum, steels, and titanium. Now, minimum for titanium is 415 megapascal, and 1450 is the highest ultimate tensile strength or the maximum tensile strength. Then steels, the range is 415 to 1750. So steel is having the maximum range, which is between 415 to 1750. And aluminum actually has a lower ultimate tensile strength from 90 to 600. So according to the robustness which we want to have, we can select the material. If we want to have a material having a greater strength or greater tensile strength, then steels can be used, and moderate tensile strength, then titanium can be used, and lower tensile strength, then aluminum can be used. So for the cycles which are, or handlebars which are produced for kids, for the cycles having which kids are using, maybe aluminum may be used because it does not require that much strength. The weight of the kids is also very low. And if we talk about the modulus of elasticity, 69 is the modulus of elasticity for aluminum, then 190 it is for steels, and titanium it is 80. And yield point, if we talk about where first deformation takes place, so it is 550 megapascal for aluminum, 1725 maximum for steels, and 1380 maximum for titanium. And minimum it is 344, 205 and 35 for the respective materials. So accordingly we can select as per the loads which will be applied on the cycles, and the handlebar is subjected to what kind of loads parallelly from the various parts. Then if we talk about the elongation, taking a 50 piece of aluminum, steel and titanium, the maximum elongation is in steels, which is of 65%, and minimum elongation is of 2%. So it is providing a wider range of elongation in case of steels. In case of titanium, it is 7 to 25, and in case of aluminum, it is 5 to 45. Now, elongation basically helps us in designing what kind of allowances we should give to these materials, because when subjected to same temperature ranges, they will show a different kind of elongation. So similarly, the allowances will also be set so that there is no deformation in the entire design. And similarly, 28 is the Poisson's ratio, which is basically the ratio of the length, the depth and the thickness of the material. And minimum Poisson ratio is 31 for aluminum, and maximum it is 34. Similarly, steels also show it as 28 and 33, and titanium 31 and 34. So all these properties can be considered for designing the materials. Then physical properties can also be considered, like the density. The material and density also plays an important role in the manufacturing process which is selected. A denser powder material actually helps in powder metallurgy, when powder metallurgy processes are performed. So 8025 is the density, maximum density, average density of the steel. Maximum density is 9130. Similarly, 4510 is for titanium, average density, and aluminum it is 2700. So powder metallurgy will be more supported for steels as compared to titanium and aluminum. Similarly, melting point is also given. Now here the temperatures are not, the materials are not subjected to that much temperature, but while designing or manufacturing, they will be subjected to some melting point, some melting or some heat they will be subjected to, because of which melting will happen in case of die casting as well as sand casting. So 1724.5 is the average melting point of steel, and for titanium it is 1941, and for aluminum it is 933. Similarly, for thermal conductivity is also given here, watt per meter Kelvin, and similarly coefficient of thermal expansion is also given, how much the material will expand. So these can be considered by the designer in detail, and best combinations can be obtained. And selecting of the manufacturing processes, now here 3 processes are given: casting, forging, and powder metallurgy, as well as powder metallurgy. All 3 are basically forming and shaping processes. Then there are machining processes also, super finishing processes also, joining process, welding is given, and heat treatment is basically to change the properties of the materials. So what are the important aspects of these? Powder metallurgy is for complex parts and made of high strength and hard alloys. Then casting is an oldest method, which is for producing complicated shapes, and it is very cheaper as compared to powder metallurgy or forging also. Plastic deformation takes place when compressive forces are applied in case of forging, where where the material is subjected to compressive forces, and it is deformed to the desired shape. And parts belonging to net shape manufacturing category can be made with special techniques with forging, and with powder metallurgy also good dimensional accuracy can be obtained, and good surface finish and dimensional accuracy and strength. But there are some defect possibilities also in case of casting. So all these 3 processes can be compared for their benefits and for the type of materials they can be manufactured, the type of materials they can manufacture. So here these relationships are emphasized, Like reasonable cost, steel is having a relationship with a reasonable cost. Then aluminum is also having a strong relationship with reasonable cost. And welding is the process which is a reasonable cost joining process. Other joining processes are not given here. Maybe other parts some processes directly produce the net shape manufacturing products which do not need any further joining or any other process. Also, aerodynamic look is best supported by die casting, followed by sand casting and forging, and powder metallurgy also supports aerodynamic look. Then nice finish, if we talk about, it is aluminum and titanium which are giving it a nice finish, and die casting is also supporting this finish, and powder metallurgy is also supporting the nice finish. Aluminum and titanium are better corrosion resistant as compared to steel. And lightweight, if we talk about, aluminum and titanium are having a lighter weight and have a strong relationship with that. Strength, steel and titanium are able to deliver the strength well, and forging also supports the strength which is obtained in the final component. Then durability, if we talk about, steel is most durable, and it supports the die casted products are more durable and the forged products are more durable. Then medium relationships are shown by the circle which is not filled, and the triangle shows a weak relationship. And it shortens the development cycle because all the team members of different departments actually brainstorm and find out the most appropriate method. And historical results also come into action. And if there are no relationships, in case of like here in aerodynamic look, steel is supporting the reasonable cost as well as the strength and the durability, but it is not supporting the aerodynamic look. But on the other hand, titanium, if we talk about, it is supporting 4 customer requirements, and powder metallurgy is supporting 2 customer requirements, and aluminum is supporting 4 customer requirements. So the material which is selecting the maximum customer requirements and also catering to the requirement which is more important to the customer, that will be given preference as compared to the other material. And similarly, the manufacturing process which is supporting maximum customer requirements will be given a better preference as compared to the other manufacturing processes. So and assessment of these relationships can be done based on expert experience, customer responses, or controlled experiments. And if data is available, correlation can be used. Pearson correlation coefficient is used for interval and ratio data, and Spearman's rank correlation is used for ordinal and rank data. So this is how relationships can be assessed, and maximum and the most important combination can be found out between hows and whats, or technical requirements and customer requirements. Now, as there are different types of QFDs given in different books, I found this one which was basically for designing a hamburger, and the taste, nutrition, and visual appeal and good value were the customer requirements. Now, sometimes QFD is designed for the end customer. So, for example, in cars, different customers will prefer different types of cars based on their financial condition, also their status, also their likability and their choices. So, similarly, burgers, in case of hamburgers or any food item, taste will vary from customer to customer. If we give importance to their historic condition, their health also, like if some people are diabetic, they might not prefer sugar, or they might not prefer rice oriented food items. Similarly, nutrition value will be of importance to each and every person, and visual appeal might be youngsters like better visual appeal as compared to other categories of customers. So sometimes customized QFD also has to be prepared based on different customer choices, especially, for example, in food items, or this is where the product is actually given to a wide segment of customers, and the customer choices differ based on age, based on their profession, or based on their financial status, and large number of factors. So customized QFD is for end customers, and lesser customized only a single design or a QFD having lesser number of choices is for basically vehicle manufacturers and automotive part supplier case. For example, Bosch delivers to Mahindra a different pump, but the requirements are specified by Mahindra. So there are not much variations in the design. However, the variations can be with respect to different types of vehicles that Mahindra is manufacturing. And if we are dealing with end customers, obviously there will be more variation in the QFD, and there will be greater in-depth analysis will be required in that case. And so moving to the fourth step, we actually compare the various technical requirements and find out whether we compare the technical requirements and whether we find out whether technical requirements are actually supporting each other or not. For example, here you can see that materials, in case of materials, steel, aluminum and titanium are actually no interrelationship is shown, because one of the material will be chosen. It will be either steel or aluminum or titanium. So there will not be any interrelationship between these. But welding, if we talk about, there is a strong negative relationship between titanium and welding. So titanium does not support welding according to this diagram. Then there is a positive relationship between aluminum and welding, and there is a strong positive relationship between steel and welding. And similarly for die casting, aluminum is maximum supporting the die casting process, and forging is maximum supported by steel, and powder metallurgy is maximum supported by titanium. So interrelationship of technical descriptors is also found out. There is a strong negative relationship between forging and titanium. So if we have forging process, the equipments of forging process available, or the manufacturing facilities of forging available, then we might not use titanium. So similarly, the best mix can be found out by assessing the relationships between the various technical requirements also. So conflicting technical descriptors are a result of conflicting customer requirements, consequently represent points where trade-offs must be made. So here the best possible solution will be taken further, and which are conflicting, mostly maximum conflicting technical descriptors are avoided in order to have a better fulfillment of customer requirements. Now step 5 is basically customer and technical competitive assessment. Now here the product handlebar stem which is manufactured is compared with A's product and B's product, which are two organizations, and rating is given. 5 is the best rating and 1 is the worst rating. So if we talk about the requirement of nice finish or aerodynamic look, A's product is having a best aerodynamic look and nice finish, and the our product is basically having 4 value in those customer requirements. So there is a scope of improvement. Then cost wise also, 3 is our rating, and A and B product the rating is 4, and B is having 2 rating. So A's product we can benchmark also what A is doing, with which they are having a better cost. Also the light, in case of lightweight, they are achieving the lightweight in the final product in a better way as compared to us. And similarly, strength and durability are better obtained in B's product, so we can benchmark the B's product for the strength and durability. And it is helpful in uncovering gaps in engineering judgment, this competitor analysis. It also helps in areas to concentrate in the next design, and appraisal where an organization stands relative to its competitors. So comparative analysis between our product and customer product is done with respect to customer requirements in the customer competitive assessment, and then benchmark. The processes can be benchmarked, and the customer requirements, how the customers are achieving, that can be benchmarked, and the designs can be improved in our own product. Similarly, technical competitive assessment is done. Now here 0 is given in some cases. For example, in our product, steel is given 0 because that product is we are not making a product which is based on steel. So that is why we are giving it 0. Otherwise 1 to 5 is basically used. 5 is for best and 1 is for worst. Similarly, if we talk about other products, like A product is using titanium, and our product is of aluminum, and B's product is of steel. And similarly, die casting, our product and A product both are having this die casting process, so both are given 5, and others 0 is given because there no comparison is possible in the technical competitive assessment. Maybe they are not using the process, or maybe finally manufactured pieces are actually obtained, and the manufacturing facility is not used. So that is why 0 is given. Otherwise, 1 to 5, the technical competitive assessment is given rating as compared to which material is better as compared to the competitor, and which manufacturing process is better as compared to the competitor. So technically also we are comparing with the customer. Now, the sixth is basically defining the prioritized customer requirement. Now, here importance to customer is listed. For example, reasonable cost is having 8 value given here, and 1 to 10 the ratings are there. Importance to customer, rating of customer requirement with respect to importance to customer from 1 to 10. 1 is the least important, 10 is the most important. So cost is the most important factor, followed by lightweight for customer, then 5, aerodynamic look, nice finish, and strength. All these are having rating 5. So these are of similar importance to the customer, followed by durability. So these are the customer preferences. Then how we are, what is our target value is that we are basically having 3, 4, 4, 4 and 3, 3, 3 in all these requirements: reasonable cost, aerodynamic look, nice finish, corrosion resistance, lightweight, strength, and durability. So if we want to achieve what target value we want to achieve in this product, which we are manufacturing with respect to the customer requirements, for reasonable cost we want to achieve 4 rating. So the scale up factor here is given as 1.3 because 4 divided by 3 is 1.3. Similarly, aerodynamic look, we are at 4 and we have the target rating of 4 only. So 1 is given in the scale up factor. Similarly, nice finish, we have a rating of 4, but we want to achieve 5. So we have a rating of 4 and we also want to achieve 4. So scale up factor is 1 only. Similarly, corrosion resistance, we have a factor of 1 only. We do not want to improve in that respect. Similarly, lightweight, we want to improve by 1.3 to 1.3. That is, we are at 3 rating and we want to achieve 4 rating. And strength on durability, again, we are maintaining the same scale up factor. So scale up factor actually helps us how much we want to improve from 1 to 5 rating, whatever rating we are having, how much the rating should be improved with that can be decided with the scale up factor. And then next is the sales point. Sales point is to find out which customer requirement will help in selling the product. So sales point, if we talk about 1.5, 1.5 value is given to reasonable cost, and 1.5 is again given to aerodynamic look, and 2 is given to the lightweight. So according to the sales point, the advertising will be done based on if the product advertisement will be shown, then they will actually highlight lightweight of the product, or the lightweight can, if lightweight can be achieved, then the product will sell more. That is the perception of the organization, and that is why they are actually having a scale up factor of 1.3 for lightweight, and they want to further improve the weight of the product. Similarly, reasonable cost also they are aiming to improve, because that will have a selling advantage, or that can provide a competitive advantage while selling the product. Similarly, the aerodynamic look. So the points which are given higher rating in sales point are the points on which the organization is aiming to sell its product, or the strategy is focused on selling on the product based on these points. 1.5, 1.5 and 2 rating is given. So these will be emphasized while selling the product, as these the perception is that there will be better sales if we achieve these sales points. And then there is an absolute weight. Absolute weight is basically the multiplication of importance to customer, the scale up factor, and the sales up point. So multiplication of importance to customer is 8 value is given here in the case of reasonable cost, followed by scale which is 1.3. So 8 into 1.3 into sales point, that is 1.5. If multiply all these three, 16 will be the absolute weight. Similarly, for aerodynamic look, we have a customer importance rating as 5, and 1.1 is the sales up factor, scale up factor, and 1.5 is the sales point. So with that respect, 8 will be the value. So similarly, multiplications of importance to customer ratings, scale up factor, and sales up point will be done, and absolute weight can be obtained. And the most prioritized requirement of customer can be found out. And here lightweight is the prioritized customer requirement, followed by reasonable cost. And then the third most important is aerodynamic look. Customer requirements. Then moving further to prioritize technical requirements. Now, prioritize technical requirements.
Why suddenly voice has stopped? No voice is coming.
Yeah, let us check it. She will get connected again. Yeah, no audio. She will be coming back. You're on mute. Juhi, you're on mute.
Yeah, sir, is it audible now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, from where I should begin? Step 5, customer and technical competitive assessment, or step 6?
2 minutes ago, it was,
Okay. Okay, so I'll start with this customer and technical competitive assessment. I think step 4 must be over by then.
Yeah.
Step 6 was done.
Okay, step 6. Yeah. So, sir, we are on the step 6, where 2 points are there: developing prioritized customer requirements. So here, absolute weight is denoting which requirement will be given more importance. Then, if we talk about the degree of technical difficulty,
ma'am, you
is
need to present your
helping us
screen.
find out which process is easy to achieve and which is difficult. So we can select sand casting as compared to die casting if it is having easy.
Excuse me.
It having
Excuse
ease
me.
You
in
need to
technical
present your screen.
facilitation.
Juhi ma'am, you need to present your screen.
Okay, sir. I'll just press. So is it visible? The slides are visible now?
Not yet.
Okay. Sir, are the slides visible now?
No, it is
No, madam.
your.
Slides are not visible.
So are the slides visible now?
No, you're clicking the style, then sharing it. Or, it's coming now. Yes.
Now it is coming.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, maybe
So,
probably maybe you can switch off the video because sometimes the bandwidth may affect get the disconnection.
Okay.
Switch off your video, then let the
Yeah.
presentation be on. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you have to represent again.
So I'm just sharing the screen. Actually, it got disconnected in between.
Yeah.
Now the share option is actually, it gets activated after some time.
Yeah, you're yeah. Present now option is coming.
Yeah, present now I clicked on it and then it is showing share our entire screen. Chrome wants
Yeah.
to share the contents of your screen. Choose what you would like to share.
Yeah. There you get the screen top. No, just touch that, then put the press the share button.
Yeah. So are you able to see my screen now?
Yeah. Yes.
Now, okay. So developing the prioritized customer requirements, which we completed. Now developing the prioritized technical descriptors. Here the degree of technical difficulty in achieving the manufacturing process or material selection is given, followed by the target value as compared to the which we wanted to achieve in technical competitive assessment. For example, here 0 and 5 were listed, but actually the rating varies from 1 to 5. 0 might be mentioned because steel is not used by A, and our own product is not used, steel is not being used, so that is why 0 is given here. But the target value is that we want to achieve 5 in all these aspects, whether steel, aluminum or titanium, we want to achieve the best rating. Then for welding we want to achieve the 4 rating, and for die casting we want to achieve 5. And sand casting and forging and powder metallurgy might not be required then, so that is why there is no target value given. So target value, the major aim is what we want to achieve with respect to our customer, what we are currently having, what rating we are currently having with respect to the specified technical descriptor, be it the material or the manufacturing process, and the target value means what we want to achieve. Whether that might be, we might be low in any technical descriptor and we want to benchmark our customer, or we might be best, but still we want to further improve. For example, in some technical, during competitive assessment, technical competitive assessment, we might be having 4 rating in die casting. Here 5 rating is given. So we might want to further improve our rating and we want to achieve 5. So that can also be a case. So target value actually denotes what value we want to achieve with respect to the technical descriptor. Then absolute weight here is measured by multiplying the value, that is of the relationship between technical and technical descriptor and voice of customer. For example, reasonable cost, steel is having 9 rating because it is having a strong relationship. So steel and reasonable cost are having 9 rating. So the absolute weight can be obtained by dot product of relationship symbol of technical descriptor and importance to customer rating. Importance to customer rating is specified as 8 here. And if we multiply both these, then this value can be given. Dot product of relationship symbol of technical descriptor and importance to customer in each case. And if we sum up, for example, here multiplication will be 9 for steel and reasonable cost into importance to customer, that is 8. Then plus here there is no relationship, so no multiplication will take place in case of aerodynamics, look and steel. Then nice finish is having a medium relationship, so plus 3 value will be there, which will be multiplied with the importance to customer, that is 5. So 9 into 8 plus 3 into 5 plus 1 into 2 is the importance of customer in case of corrosion resistance. Then lightweight, again 1 into 7 will be the multiplication figure. Then plus 9 into 5 will be the importance of a customer rating for strength and steel. If we show there is a strong relationship, so 9 will be multiplied with 5. And then durability, for durability 9 will be multiplied with 3. So all these will be added and the final figure will be 168. Similarly for aluminium, again we will multiply 9 into 8 plus 1 into 5, then again 9 into 5, then again 9 into 2, then again 9 into 7, and 3 into 5, and then again 3 into 3. So all these will be multiplied and added and absolute weight values will be given. Then relative weight will be the dot product of the relationship symbol of the technical descriptor and absolute weight of each customer. Now these relationship values, that is 9, 3 and 1, will be again multiplied with the absolute weight. For example, 9 into 16. So 9 into 16 will be multiplied and plus 0 into 8, then plus 3 into 5. So all these will be multiplied and added to obtain the relative weight. So it will be the dot product of the relationship symbol of the technical descriptor and absolute weight of each customer requirement. So 9 will be multiplied with the 16 here. Absolute weight is the rightmost column. So 9 will be multiplied with 16 plus 0 into 8 plus 3 into 5. So all these will be added to obtain the relative weight. And then in the relative weight segment, we can find out the maximum value, which is appearing as 401. So relative weight, aluminum is showing the maximum importance. In case of relative weight, it is relatively more important as compared to the other materials. Similarly, in case of manufacturing process is also the process which is showing maximum value will be given relatively more importance. So these are basically only mathematical calculations to find out which manufacturing process is more suitable, or which will be the material, which material will be more suitable and which will have better fulfillment of the customer expectations, and accordingly we can select. And the relationship symbols, if there are very less number of relationships in any column, we can actually say that because relationships are low, that might be a redundant technical requirement or a better technical requirement should be obtained. And if absolute weight is very low, for example, in corrosion resistance, here absolute weight is very low. For example, 2 is the value in case of corrosion resistance. So this requirement might be already achieved, or it is not, the customer is not giving much importance to that, or it is not easily fulfilled with the already available facilities that can be obtained. And this is the entire overview of quality function deployment. And if we move further and find out what are the various phases of QFD, now product planning and design requirement. Now here customer requirements and design requirements are there. Then we will find out what are the part requirements. In phase 2, part development will take place. So design requirements will become the customer requirements, and part quality characteristics will actually be listed here, and part development phase will take place. Then in the process planning, again part quality characteristics will again become customer requirements, and key process operations will be listed here. Similarly, in phase 4, key process operations will be listed on the left hand side, the customer requirements, and production requirements will be listed on the technical descriptors. So it is basically, if we analyze it thoroughly, we find out that design requirements are actually propagated from initial product to part quality characteristics to key process operations and then to production requirements. So this is the general process which we follow, but here these are driven from customer requirements, so better output can be obtained with by using the QFD process at various stages. The control plan and FMEA can also be designed in between, when process characteristics will be listed, which process is to be controlled, how it is to be controlled can be defined, and failure modes can also be identified. Their prevention and detection measures can also be listed. Then statistical process control can be achieved in machines. SPC can be achieved, and wherever SPC is not possible and monitoring is there for any particular dimension, it can be listed that monitoring process is going on, and further dependent and independent variables can be found out for that monitored characteristic. So all this will happen sequentially, one by one, during the QFD process, and for each stage a different QFD will be prepared. And I'm also going to discuss one more case of a service requirement, service industry, that is the educational sector. And my brother and my mother actually both are educationists, so they actually supported me in actually compiling the diagram of quality function deployment diagram of the college. Now here service QFD, I've taken educational services. Educational services, the customers are basically students of an institute, and students actually are customers they want to build their human capital, that is their knowledge, their skills, and the expertise. And knowledge is basically the information and the information they gain during the experience. And then if we talk about the skills, the ability to do a task well is skill, and expertise is having a great acumen in performing any skill. So knowledge, skills, and expertise, all these are part of human capital. And the customers are again the employers or the higher educational institutions. If students want to go for a higher degree, then higher educational institutions will be the customers, and employers will be the customers of the human capital of the students. So educational setup, institute, customers are the students are the customers of the institute, and of the educational services that institute is providing. What they want to achieve, they want to achieve human capital, all-round development, physical, emotional, spiritual, all kinds of development they want to achieve. So knowledge, skills, and expertise all will come into picture. Then again, the customers of these are the employers. So this was the basic understanding of the QFD. And if we just have a look at the diagram, I'll just share the diagram. So are you able to see the diagram?
Yes.
So this is basically a QFD. This template is available on internet, And at the end of the training, I'll also share the template with you. Now here, what we have listed is we want what customers want, what students want. They want best faculties. They want excellent infrastructure, excellent platform to develop skills. They want value inculcation. They want accomplishment of futuristic goals. That is, they want good recruitment opportunities and campus placements. They want affordable fees for availing education and on-job training and internships. That is what customers want. And how can we achieve? Technical descriptors is lecture theaters well equipped with modern amenities should be there, technically as per architecture and civil norms. Now, architectural norms are important because if the reverberation time, that is the amount of time during which the noise persists in the lecture theater, is important in hearing capability or in listening skills, in improving the listening of what the teacher has to say. Similarly, temperature, humidity, and pressure actually should support the students. Then sports facilities should be there. Well-equipped labs should be there. Lush green campus, well suited for educational activities. Collaboration with industries should be there for campus placement. Social responsibility, awareness, and initiatives should be there in order to make them a good citizen. Higher educational institution collaborations should be there to give them better platforms. Collaboration with coaching institutes should be there in order to prepare students for competitive exams of future. Then faculty knowledge upliftment programs should be there. Qualified PhD and excellent faculties should be there. Innovative and adaptive teaching methodology should be used by the faculties. Then student scholarships should be there. Fees and compliance with fee structure laid down by UGC should be there. Norms should be followed as per University Grants Commission. National and technical cultural fest should be there. Media cell, publication cell, and literary cell for overall development, and student driven placement cell should be there. Now here, the symbols which are given here, the rating is specified on the rightmost corner. Here you can see that the circle with a dot is having strong relationship. A hollow circle is a moderate relationship, and weak relationship is having a triangle. So we, according to our understanding, we actually listed these, but more appropriately, we could have obtained the data for example, faculty knowledge upliftment programs. We could have obtained the data, and then we could have actually correlated it with student feedback on faculties, whether faculties are good, better, good, improvement is required in faculties, or faculties are excellent. The student rating of the faculty could have been compared with the qualification of the PhD and the amount of experience faculty is having, and then whether here a strong relationship is there or not, which could have been decided. Then faculty knowledge upliftment programs, how many they are conducting, there is a strong relationship with best faculties. Excellent infrastructure is having best relationship with lecture theaters, sports facilities, well-equipped labs, and lush green campus with well suited for educational activities. It should be at a place where there should not be any industrial pollution, not much noise also. Then excellent platform to develop skills. National level technical cultural fest, media cell, publication cell, literary cell, and student driven placement cells are having strong relationship. Similarly, value inculcation, social responsibility awareness initiatives are there that will be having a stronger relationship with value inculcation. Then a value test can also be designed, whether student is performing to a specified value or not. That can be designed by the institutes. For example, recently University Grants Commission Rajasthan University has taken one initiative in some colleges that there will be exams without invigilators, and there will be cameras, and it will be monitored whether students are interacting between each other in cameras, and that will actually display whether they are honest in giving exams or not. Similarly, other value tests can also be defined. Accomplishment of futuristic goals, good recruitment opportunities. So collaboration with industries will have a strong relationship, and there are 3 points which are having strong relationship. Similarly, affordable fees and on-job trainings and internships relationships can be mapped. And if we talk about the technical requirements, strong positive correlation is shown by a double positive sign, positive correlation with a plus sign, and negative correlation with minus sign. So each of the technical descriptors was actually compared, and a plus sign, for example, is shown here in between well-equipped labs as well as as well as collaboration with industries, NGOs, internships, etc. So there was a strong correlation between them, because sometimes sponsors are also there, who actually help in facilitating well-equipped labs. Similarly, lecture theaters, and if we talk about well-equipped labs, technical and others, there is a strong correlation. So some factors which support each other means lecture theater is well equipped as well as lab is well equipped. Then practical skills will be well rendered, as well as theoretical skills will be well taught in the lecture theater. So that kind of combination can be obtained by comparing each of the technical descriptor. Also here in the row number 48, direction of improvement is given, whether we want to maximize a technical descriptor, or we want to just hit target, or we want to minimize something. An unwanted technical descriptor can be minimized, or we can be whether ambitious to maximize it, or we just want to keep it the same, depending on the economics or our cost impact. Then in the stage 5, the competitor analysis is done. Now here 5 colleges were selected based on India Today results of ranking, comparing where rankings were given to various management institutes, and all these were assessed based on their faculties, excellent infrastructure, and excellent platforms, value inculcation, etc. So college, basically all the colleges were compared and the ratings were given. For example, college 5 was having best faculty, so 5 rating was given to it. Similarly, entire competitive analysis can be done. And then the target value which we want to achieve in each technical descriptor here can be written. The difficulty in achieving is also listed, degree of difficulty. So actually degree of difficulty will help us in focusing on the resources. Like if something is very difficult to achieve, then we will have to bring more resources or invest more time in finding out the resources or arranging the resources for achieving that technical descriptor. So that can also be taken into consideration while designing the entire QFD. And these values, maximum relationship value, weight, and relative weight, these get automatically computed in this template when we insert it. So this is one example of service industry and how QFD is basically designed in a service industry. So again, moving back to the original PPT where 1 or 2 slides are left. I'll just so is the PPT visible now? Hello?
Yes.
So moving further, now again coming back to the concluding section of this. Now here I have just taken an example of production of float glass. Any other example could have been taken. Here I want to specify the stages, like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are the stages which I have specified. And these are, I am calling as defect catching sites in order to show the importance of the stage at which defect is caught. Now defect is, according to definition with respect to the books which we have referred, a defect is any product not meeting customer expectation or any service not meeting customer expectation. Now, if we compare, like here, the origin of defect can be at any of the stage, and defect catching can also be at any of the stage. So if the defect is caught closer to the origin of failure, then there will be lesser cost in improving, in repairing the defect or in removing the defect. The closer the defect is caught to the origin of failure, the lesser will be the losses. For example, first of all, the defect should not happen. So we should have preventive measures so that defect should not take place. But if origin of defect is at 0 site and it is caught at 0 site, then there will be lesser cost as compared to when it is caught at 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5 stages. So similarly, if defect is originated at 1 and it is caught at the same stage, then least cost will be there, and 2, 3, 4, 5, there will be more cost because more value addition will take place. After stage 3, the component is more expensive as compared to the component at 2 stage. So the greater the defect is cost closer to the origin of failure. The detection mechanisms, if we are designing, those should be designed closer to the origin possibility, means the manufacturing process where the defect can be originated. First of all, we should design processes so that defect does not originate only, means preventive measures should be there. But in case any defect is occurring, the detection mechanisms should also be designed closer to the origin of failure so that cost can be reduced. If defects are caught closer to the origin of failure, there will be lesser cost. And QFD reduces the possibility of defect origination, hence reduces losses. And benefits of QFD is it gives a better engineering knowledge. There is a better documentation. There is better stage-wise clarity, better customer satisfaction. It improves productivity. It promotes teamwork between the departments, better communication it promotes, and it improves the efficiency of the team. It improves the efficiency of the processes, the parts developed. It reduces the cost, the development time also it reduces. The quality it improves. Reduction in development time is shown here as an in the form of a graph. And also number of engineering changes in future, it reduces. Because initially only most of the changes possible are considered, and a cross-functional team works, so most of the changes are considered initially only. So these are the benefits of implementing QFD correctly. And these are the practice exercises. I will just read out the question and any one of you can answer based on what you think about it. There is no right or wrong answer, but a better choice is available and a lesser favorable choice is available. So here an organization structure kind of diagram is given. So you have to find out which design, if the part will have where the lacuna is there while designing the product. So I have taken an example. If I have used tube lights of Surya and Philips, and after complete use of 1 year, now 1 year was the defined life of the tube light, and I have changed the tube light with a new one. I've replaced it with a new one. The tube light seller did not tell me how to dispose the tube lights. And when I asked the local scrap collector whether he'll be interested in taking the tube light, he refused because it was of no use for him. And there are no electronic scrap collectors also in the surrounding region. The manufacturers failed in designing with respect to which requirement in this case? Whether they failed in designing for manufacturing, designing for assembly, designing for disassembly, for recycling, or for servicing, or for designing for environment or green, having a green design.
That is designed for recycling.
Yes, design for recycling as well as design for environment.
As well as environment, both.
Designing for environment will also be an appropriate choice in this case. Also, here we can also think like some people actually eat this Rajnigandha pan or other pan masalas. So there, the container in which these are stored, so they do not take it back. And large number of containers are actually, they can be sold either to the scrap collectors or to the casting design people, the people who do sand casting, etc. Because it is of steel, it is of tin, and tin can be again reused. So they have also not designed for recycling. And if you call them and find out whether they'll be interested in taking those old tin cans, so they will not show any interest. So most of the manufacturers are actually failing in designing for recycling and designing for green design or designing for environment. Then another question, a college advertises that it has 100% of placements in the past and 100% pass percentage. Now they have shown an advertisement where they have specified 100% of placements are there and 100% of pass percentage is there. All employers which visit the college asked for minimum 65% passing marks as an eligibility requirement. The employers have specified this requirement of passing percentage in students. The placement statistics are not disclosed to the students who are actually planning to join the college. Also, there is one requirement of annual quality assurance report by UGC, University Grants Commission, which is to be displayed on the website, which shows the placement statistics also, but which is not displayed on college website. But the examination records show that 60% of the students secured more than 65%. Only 60% of students actually secured more than 65%. So do you think that the college is true to its customers?
See, in reality, this 65% has no meaning as far as the candidates can do the work in the company where they are appointed. So that itself is wrong, asking for 65% passing mark, because
Yeah.
that passing marks has no meaning at all.
Yes,
I
sir.
should
So,
be able to do the work.
sir, you have brought a very good point. Now here, actually, employers also sometimes fail in giving the requirements. If they are more concerned about passing marks only, so they have actually
That
specified.
is wrong.
Yeah, so they should have also specified the skills also and how they will test those skills also. Because if testing procedure is different, then also results will be different. For example, if A interviewer interviews the candidate, they might select 10 candidates, but B interviewer might select different 10 candidates. So selection criteria, or the selection process should also be standardized, and also the colleges should be more prompt and more focused on taking the requirements from the employers. Now here, one point is also mentioned that the college is not true to its customers because it has specified in the advertisement that 100% of placements have taken place. But in reality, if 65% passing marks was the criteria and only 60% of students could achieve it, so 100% placements could not take place. So that is also one point. And you have also brought a valid point that requirements should have been specified more clearly, and college should be more focused in taking requirements in a better way in skills and on job what skills are required for the candidates. So curriculum should also be adjusted to the industry needs, because employers are also secondary customers of the college and primary customers for the students. So these are the two practice exercises, and these are the books which I have referred. M. Mahajan and James R. Evans and Besterfields. These three are mostly focusing on quality, and they have shown the process of quality function deployment. The hamburger example was from James R. Evans, and the cycle handlebar example was from Besterfield. And there is one example given in SQC Mahajan also. And apart from that, some other books I've referred for mechanical properties. Those were from Pearson Education, and those for designing for manufacturing and assembly and production related requirements. And that's all from my side. And if there are any queries, anyone can ask. Thank you very much.
Kindly share your presentation with us.
Yeah, that I'll share, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Excellent presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And I'm also sharing the feedback link, so you can give the feedback.
Yes, the presentation was very good.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Well, distributed time very good.
Thank you, sir.
So we will receive this presentation in our email.
Yeah, yes, sir. I'll share it with Prabhakar sir also, and if I have the email IDs also, so I'll share with personally also.
Whoever are registered, those people's email IDs are available. We'll go to.
Thank you, Mr. Prabhakar, for arranging such a nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other queries on the same subject?